All right, welcome to SouFLoTV again, everybody. It is your host with the most, and we are going to be talking about a lengthy topic here. So sit in for a minute. I need intelligent minds right here, right now, to listen. Let me say this first. Keep your comments clean, because anyhow you use any curse words in your comment, I am erasing your comment as soon as I see it. Okay? You can say whatever you want to say, but just don't put any curse words in it. I'm one here where everybody have to step on the topic here, because this has to do with China and Jamaica and the USA, and the USA telling Jamaica to beware of China, the two-headed dragon. All right, hear this. So, taking this one again from the Gleaner, it says, in stinging criticism of the Holness administration's warning relationship with Beijing, Holness has a warming relationship with Beijing, United States Ambassador Donald Tapia has urged the government to be wary of China's deepening footprint in Jamaica, citing the Asian country's lavish investment pitch as predatory and dangerous. In other words, then, what he is saying is, Jamaica, brace yourself for a takeover. Be very careful, because the Chinese are very tactical in what they do, and before you know it, they will have possessions of your most prized possessions. Alright, so Tapia, who arrived in Jamaica in August, has shelved the diplomatic subtlety of recent U.S. ambassadors. In other words, U.S. ambassadors recently didn't have so much to say. They didn't speak out so loud and boisterous. Tapia, as soon as he landed in Jamaica, though, he, if you don't know, has changed positions with a previous individual who had that position before. So now you have a new person there, and as soon as he hits the ground, he voices out his opinion of the relationship between Jamaica and China. Now, a lot of people are saying that the U.S. has been uncomfortable for quite some time now about the warming relationship between Jamaica and China, even using his Twitter account as a launching pad for incentive against Chinese neo-imperialism at least 4 times in 1 week. Much in the mold of his boss, who is President Donald Trump, because you know Donald Trump likes to take it to Twitter and just tweet out everything. So, China is a dragon with 2 heads, he said. If China came to Jamaica, presumably with no strings attached, then why did you negotiate 1,200 acres of your most prime real estate with them? Because they need a return on their investments, the ambassador said during an exclusive interview with the Gleaner. Now, check this out. We don't know idiot. We know say something for something. You understand? So, I'm sure the leaders in Jamaica knew from the get-go that China wasn't just coming to Jamaica and giving us all these goodies and doing its best to help us to develop our infrastructures and all these business deals and contractual agreements that are bettering our economy in Jamaica, and they were just doing it just as a favor. Of course they want something in return. Of course they want a return on their investment. Anyhow, the article went on to say there is no way that you will be able to fund that highway in 50 years. This is him still talking, you know, the U.S. ambassador. He said there is no way that Jamaica will be able to fund that highway in 50 years. And as you know, the toll keep on rising, and it gone up and up and up because we're trying to pay off that highway. And he's saying there's no way we're going to be able to do it in 50 years. The negotiation was 1,200 of the most beautiful acres on the water that you gave to the Chinese. And they said that they would develop it, he added, referring to a land swap deal agreed under the predecessor Simpson-Miller administration. Alright, so Portia Simpson negotiated that deal with China and gave away 1,200 acres of Jamaica's most prime seafront, beachfront real estate to the Chinese, right? Tapia also cast Chinese financing as at a rate of 2%. Though its Export-Import Bank as contrived, arguing that no bank in capitalistic society offered such competitive rates. He also denounced unfair the Jamaican government's concessions to China Harbor Engineering Company and other construction firms aligned to Beijing that engage in major infrastructure projects. So the Chinese are here getting a whole lot out of Jamaica, people. You don't have to read these articles. Let me go back over this again. Tapia, who is the new U.S. ambassador, he said Tapia also cast Chinese financing at a rate of 2% through its Export-Import Bank as contrived, arguing that no bank in capitalistic society offers such competitive rates. In other words, he's saying that he don't know how they're able to give Jamaica all this at a 2% rate, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, if we can get it for 2%, then why not take it for 2%? You know what I'm saying? But anyhow, he also denounced as unfair the Jamaica's government concessions to China Harbor Engineering Company. In other words, he's saying that the China Harbor Engineering Company is taking up all the contracts for construction work all across the island to build its major infrastructures and projects. A missive that will hit the Holness administration and find favor with local engineers and developers who have lamented that they are often unable to bid for contracts because the Chinese have a leg up on the market. So in other words, our own local construction companies, our own engineers are being starved out under the Holness administration because of these deals that Andrew Holness has made with China. So they have all the contracts for all these infrastructures, buildings, and so on and so forth. And it makes it hard for ours to survive. The U.S. ambassador scolded China for its appetite as part of a geopolitical game of chess, centered, he said, on extracting natural resources with ulterior motives, including in a hemisphere-long viewed to be America's backyard. So in other words, he's saying that what China really wants from Jamaica is Jamaica's natural resources. You know, some people say there's oil in Jamaica, and people are positioning themselves in Jamaica to capitalize on that oil. There is gold in Jamaica, and people are positioning themselves to capitalize off that gold. We have known for the longest that there is bauxite, which is one of our chief exports in Jamaica, and the Chinese are there running that red as we speak. But the Americans have had their share of it as well, right? So the U.S. ambassador is scolding China for their appetite of this, and they're also saying that how China is positioning itself right in their backyard. So, wow, they have a lot of concerns concerning China and China's relationship with Jamaica. Stick a pin before we even go any further with this. Remember when President Obama flew down to Jamaica and people were saying, oh, it's because he's black and because Jamaica has majority black citizens, and look how close Jamaica is to the U.S. And no other U.S. president had visited in how many long of years and periods of time. But President Obama respected us enough to come sit in. It wasn't about him coming to sit in. It was about him doing business in the best interest of the United States of America. He came to see what was going on. Boots on the ground to see what the Chinese are doing here. You know what I'm saying? And of course, they are concerned because it is in their backyard. All right. You can go ahead and think warlike and war strategies if you want to. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, when the Chinese go into a country, this is the U.S. ambassador still speaking to Jamaica or to Jamaican government. He said that when the Chinese go into a country, you see, they go after two things. They go after the minerals and they go after the ports. I could tell you horror stories of countries where they have taken over the ports because those countries could not pay for their investment. China usually has a great propaganda story as to why it has happened, he told the Gleaner. Now, China has taken over quite a few ports of African nations because they were unable to pay back their debt to China by the period given. So just like the highways and whatever, and China said, all right, you have 50 years to pay it back. In 50 years, China will have made trillions of dollars off of that highway out of Jamaica, right? And they're the ones that are responsible for counting the money and keeping the books. I've been told that the books are actually kept in Mandarin and the official books are kept in China, right? So by the end of the 50 years, they will already have gotten trillions, but they will then say in 50 years, look, you haven't met our quota, you haven't met our deal. And at this time, I think it's best for us to take over your harbor for, say, the next 20, 30 years. I don't know. But whatever the deal comes through to be, it will involve taking over of harbor and the taking over of resources like minerals. When America, this is his part now. He says that when America invests in the energy and education sectors, we're building a long-lasting effect and will contribute to stability and help to stem the brain drain. Those who talk about free speech, free enterprise, and human rights, they're forgetting that these three things go together with Jamaicans, whom are freedom-loving people. And one day the chicken will come home to roost. Remember Malcolm X when he said chicken come home to roost? Anyhow, so take all you can from them, but remember that the West is standing there with you. So in other words, So Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who returned on the weekend from an 8-day tour of China in which he engaged in investment talks with President Xi Jinping and was regaled with musical performances and city tours, is expected to give details today in the House of Representatives on his travel, including the plans for increased logistical and trade ideas. Meanwhile, Curtis Ward, the former Jamaican ambassador and deputy permanent representative to the United Nations, told the Gleaner yesterday that America had telegraphed its displeasure with Sino-Jamaican pact since the visit by then Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in February of 2018. We shouldn't be surprised. It has been going on for 2 years. Since that time, clearly, Jamaica has not paid attention to what the U.S. has said, but has forged ahead with its developments, he said. So I'm guessing that the U.S. wants Jamaica to do what? To stop their development. You see all them new bridges that Jamaican people and those new highways and byways and those new buildings, high-rise buildings and infrastructures that are being and pipe are run through how many different communities now and I get water to the people and these things. The U.S. is saying that they wanted us to stop those. All those things we're doing with China, stop it. Be careful is what they're saying, because China not just giving you that for free. They're coming to take away more than what you have to give, kind of thing, right? But Ward, who is an adjunct professor at the University of the District of Columbia, said that Washington should state whether it would fill that vacuum if Jamaica were to pull back from China. Because here they are telling Jamaica to stop this, don't do that, leave China alone. But China is helping to develop the infrastructure of Jamaica. So if we were, as Jamaica, to pull back and say, okay, China, no more dealings with you, would the U.S. be able to step in and fill that void? Or would they just leave everything as it is and just be happy that, okay, Jamaica is not dealing with China anymore? That's what he is saying. Jamaica has benefited from billions of dollars in Chinese investment over the last decade, ranging from the investment of the sugar industry, forays into bauxite mining, to major infrastructural projects such as the Edward Seaga Highway and road expansion in urban and rural centers. Chinese loan represents about 3.9% or 78 billion of Jamaica's $2 trillion debt. So I guess y'all should know that Jamaica has a $2 trillion debt, and we're not talking about 2 trillion Jamaican dollars debt. We're talking about 2 trillion US dollars. And Chinese debt out of that 2 trillion, because apparently we borrowed from more than 1, 2, 3 lenders, because I know about the IMF as one, and then there's China as another one, and then there's some others out there which came together as $2 trillion. The China debt of that 2 trillion is only 78 billion, right? 3.9%. That is it. And with that 3.9%, 78 billion, they have done massive movements within Jamaica itself. On Sunday, Jamaica House announced that the government would not take any other new loans from the Chinese, preferring instead to pursue private-public partnerships and facilitate direct firm-to-firm pacts. So people are saying that, I wonder if you don't see, you better go learn Mandarin. Actually, another person said, check it. Andrew Holness is listening to the Americans. And you know, so when the US sneeze, everybody catch cold. So he is listening, because why else would he have said that no more dealings like that? On Sunday, Jamaica House announced that the government would not take out any new loans with the Chinese. Oh boy. What is quite instructive is that the message is reaching the Prime Minister. The statement clarifying that we are not going to have China coming in with loans, changing the dynamics, said Ward in reference to Holness' decision to put a pause on the loans. Ward said, however, that Jamaica should not kowtow to foreign powers. In other words, don't bow down to foreign powers. This is our national interest why we're doing this. We're smart enough to know what's good for us. I don't think we have the guts to say these things though. Either you're a sycophant or you stand on your feet. I'm not saying Jamaica should pick a fight with the US, but Jamaica should definitely speak power to the US, Ward said. Now, in other words, stand up and say to them, look, we know what's best for us. Thanks for your little advice, but we know what's best for us. We got this. All right. Now, hear this out. Couple of comments I found very interesting. So LexiLex says, 4 days ago says, so, as the professor said, are they willing to fill the vacuum? If we give up this Sino-Jamaica relationship, or this Chinese-Jamaica relationship also, wasn't this ambassador talking about Jamaicans should return or stay in Jamaica and build the country? So, if you don't want us there, why do you care which country we have agreement with to help us with our development? PJ the original says, Tapia needs kicked out of there. He is nothing but trouble, and we do not need a but. Yates said, history seems to be somewhat repeating itself. Only this time, the shoe is on the other foot. Anybody remember how Michael Manley government of the 70s was crucified by none other than Uncle Sam for not following the quote-unquote blueprint? Situation seems similar. Anybody remember the role played by the then opposition leader, Mr. Siaga? My hope is that the PMP will act mature and in the best interest of our nation. Ronja says, like the JLP didn't act mature and in the best interest of our nation in the 70s. Lucky 8 says, they forgot, but I will never forget. Bay 876 says, nuclear weapons aside, Soviets are not on China's level. DDT says, my hope is that the PMP will act mature in the best interest of our nation. Desperation can make a person do surprising things, and the PNP is desperate for power. Alonso says, yes, I believe the US will interfere with our upcoming elections. Bernie replied to Alonso and said, you stay there. You stay there think an election alone them are going to interfere in it. Lloyd Scott said, well, excuse me, Mr. Ambassador. We gave China a pound of flesh in return for sweat. But your IMF and IADB took more than a pound of flesh in return for our blood, sweat, and tears without much to show for it. Your DEA and other agencies destroyed our cannabis industry in the 70s, and now your country is the world's largest producer of weed, ganja. I must confess that in times of natural disaster such as Hurricane Gilbert, you have rendered assistance. However, who we choose to friend with is none of your business. Your president is in love with ruthless dictators, and that's his and your prerogative. So don't come into our island and tell us what to do. DJ responded to Lloyd and said, not just cannabis, but the indiscriminate spraying of the ganja fields destroyed our coconuts, our bananas, our cocoa, and other vital field products. He, like his president, bought his position. DDT said to Lloyd again, given how the US operate, I foresee instructions coming to terminate the Chinese connection or face some sanctions. How can a caring people put others under sanctions which lead to suffering, hunger, and death? Who is truly the oppressor? Anthony said to Lloyd, that's one thing, but how about this one? During the last recession, you see, China bailed out the US economy, big time by buying up the US debt. China wasn't so bad then for them, nor was it? But in our case, he is trying to convince us otherwise. Guest number 3 says to Lloyd Scott, this must be a US deportee and a hater to the max. Learn Mandarin to please your new Chinese slave master. Monique Jones jumps in and says, right. We shouldn't tell you to be wary when your chickens come home to roost, just as we are wary of the destructions our president is causing. Hindsight is 2020. Phil says, the IMF is owned by over 60 countries. I believe that the US owns only 16% share and is allowed corresponding voting rights only. Chris responded to Lloyd and said, I respect your perspective. However, the US has the power to put on the economic squeeze. Then there will be a different chorus. Alonso said to Lloyd Scott, how dare them? Here is Anthony now. Anthony says, Prime Minister Holness is doing just what he has been elected to do, looking after the affairs of our people. It is what it is. We are not interested in any duppy stories. Guest number 3 says to Anthony, you better start learn Mandarin to deal with your good old racist new Chinese slave master, or master slave. Anthony said to the guest, tell that to the other 79 countries plus where the Czech, CHEC, or the Chinese are building infrastructures to help those people live with dignity in their homeland. And then the guest replied and said to Anthony, country of Jamaica, sold to Chinese investors, learn Mandarin and worry about your destiny while living with dignity and Chinese racism. Okay, buddy. Marie Myers says to guests, so the US isn't racist? Or Trump's white nationalist advisor Stephen Miller? Go tell the US to give the 16% share of debt we owe them, to forgive that and to show us infrastructure and road building projects they have given us, like China has. And tell your racist Trump to give Jamaicans visa-free travel while you're at it. Frank jumps into Anthony. Laugh out loud. These people are coming with jealousy. Lloyd Davidson said to Anthony, well said, Mr. Ward. Borrow prudently and stay clear of predatory loans. Many countries fell into the trap. Mr. Holness knows very what he is doing, although he has made some mistakes and continues to play hide and seek with the gunmen. I saw. Yardman says, like the US, Jamaica is a sovereign country which decides the best interest for the development of the country and its people. About 80% of the high murder rate in Jamaica is caused by guns that are mainly coming from the US, and none of those guns are coming from China, really. Further, China is helping to build the economy in Jamaica. The US is not contributing in the development of Jamaica. I have a theory on those guns and how they're coming in. I would go as far as to say whoever is shipping in those shipping containers at will, and whoever is traveling on diplomatic status where their stuff goes through without being searched, wink, 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 all over the place. Whoever controls the port or can grease the pockets of those who do, wink, 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 all over the place. All right. Tyrone Osborne says, what is abundantly clear is that Jamaica must take aid from the only country that is willing to aid in her development. Jamaica is by no means the only country in the entire world that is getting Chinese help in their development. Many others have benefited, and whereas China cares not about your religion or your politics, they are primarily concerned about your commercial growth. That certain countries would not want to get Jamaica to help, would not want Jamaica to get help where she can. That certain countries would not want Jamaica to get help where she can is just most unfortunate. Without Chinese help, where would Jamaica be today? And I'm going to leave it there for now. Y'all can go check out the Gleaner and find this article. And the article's title is China Backlash. U.S. Ambassador warns Jamaica to tread carefully with two-headed dragon. And check the comment section and read through that comment section because they're having a civilized, intelligent discussion over there. This is our life on display. This is our life in motion. Jamaica, Jamaicans at home and abroad. And those who have investments in Jamaica and her interests. All right, it's SouFLoTV. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Leave your comment in the comment section below. I'm out. Peace.